Michael Mann. He is a coach on Art of War as well. And surprisingly and happily enough, you can catch 2 of his games that we're going to go over on War Games Live. Of course, you can see a little bit of a spoiler here, but we can talk about some key points you can look for. And it's still a lot to learn from that in real time, which is some of the best ways you can learn if you can actually get out there and do it yourself sometimes, right? So let's go over Mr. Michael Mann's list. As you know, it was a blast from the past as he named his list OG Bully Boys. Well, you can see he had a bit of a twist. So he has the Big Mek making his appearance again. The ability to just walk through models, the ability to walk through these screens, ability to walk through cargo containers. People actually really like this mech, it seems like. But it's a little bit exclusive to these high tier players, right? If you want to talk about the other guy, Eric, that did it, Eric Sepp, I believe either he's an Art of War coach or a Team America player as well. I forgot what it is. But these are really niche circumstances. So I don't want you to go out there and be like, yes, or this is the key, or you playing with them and you're wondering, hey, how come this isn't working? It's because these are very high level players. So it is niche. It's still but something to be looked out for, especially if you picked up that box. And he's a nice model, very nice model. So happy to see it. We got Boss Snake Rot with his very unique uppy downy ability in the movement phase, which makes him kind of unique. Again, you can actually watch how he uses them in real time in the games. That way, if you really want to get Snake Rot going on, you can see how he's used there as well. We have 2 war bosses and then 3 war bosses in mega armor. Only one enhancement needed here is the teleporter. That's how I kind of feel about Bully Boys too. I don't really find too much need for any of the other enhancements other than the teleporter. Teleporter is amazing. It feels so good to have a war boss and mega armor unit as a teleporter unit because it acts as as you would call kind of in the military. I'm having a brain fart. A QRF force, right? It's your quick response force. The fact that you can drop a rapid ingress unit out with your Meganobz, it becomes a problem-solving unit actually to have in your back pocket, and it kind of goes with helping the fact that you have helping the fact that if you go second with Bully Boys, that you can act in a reactive manner that's still beneficiary to you and proactive because you have 2 walls. One can be defensive, and then the second one can be kind of your turn to throttle, even if you end up going second. Meaning you're going to rapid ingress this unit, and that kind of like counter the enemy's response to the fact that you actually are going second now. So in a way, it really makes you feel a lot better for going second in Bully Boys that other detachments don't really have because nobody's really in deep striking ingress a Meganobz or that kind of potential unit in other detachments. So then we have a 20-man unit of boys to go right along that Big Mek and a war boss. We got a truck, just one simple truck, but along those trucks we have 2 battle wagons with hard cases, 2 minimum size units of Gretchens, 1 commando unit. I'm telling you guys, if you're talking about top tables, if you're talking about people who really understand how to play the pace of the 5-turn, 4-turn game, people understand that you want infiltrators. You want scouts, and commandos. You see often, time and time again, high-level players pay the premium for these commandos because you just need to have that presence and to be able to control like a tempo of the game. So commandos are one of those key units, but you got to get reps on them. I have videos on it in the playlist so you can get kind of the fundamentals of it, which is getting reps in, know what it does for each matchup is really how you get the most a value out of these commandos, because you're not doing the same thing over and over again because they're not a damage dealer. Like you're just like, hey, I'm gonna run up and punch you. You actually have to figure out what they do in that matchup, the deployment, stuff like that. You have 3 units of Meganobz, all of them with twin kill saws because we love having -3 AP. Twin linked also, it feels really good when you're already sitting at strength 12 going up strength 13. You need it, right? Because you're hitting on 3s, hopefully, with your war boss and mega armor. You're hitting on 3s. The fact that you're usually wounding on 2s or 3s, re-rolling is inverse. You kind of look at it where you're like, man, this feels really bad that I have to hit on 3s. With Bully Boys, you do get re-rolls, but not all, on every unit, right? Not all the time on every unit. So you go like, oh man, that sucks that I'm hitting on 3s, but you're almost completely turning those hit rolls into wound rolls as a result of like 96% because you're wounding people on 2s with 3 rolls, and then sometimes you're wounding on 3s with 3 rolls. So you still very good, but that's why you more likely to pick twin kill saws. Then you got 1 5-man unit of Knobs power claws because you love those for the other war boss unit, and then 1 simple storm boy unit because you always need the storm boys. And let's go, everybody. Gonna get a whoa for all the orcs because let's see Michael's man's path to victory. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. check them out in description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Bear Enough Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. So let's go over this because he did have 8 games. So we have, this is, and these guys actually, and you'll see if you actually look this up on the War Games Live, if you check our Discord out, we actually have a channel for battle reports and stuff like that. So you can just find it right in there and watch this. Luckily, it's all on one video too. Both games are. It's like the beginning of the video and the end of the video. So it's really good. It's for the games that you were going to cover here. So you can see how it's used. But one thing here is that they actually did use the new points. And so some of them had not painted models because they were kind of allowed that grace as that they were forced upon to use the new points. So from the 3 lists we're going to cover today, this is going to be the only list that's using new points. But you know, that's still something to keep in mind when we look at the opponents that he's going into. So that's pretty cool. So we have Space Marines, Space Wolves playing Gladius Task Force. So didn't go in the Sons of Rust, but it's all good. Gladius as well, Robin. Rounded. We got Librarian, Fire Discipline, Lieutenant in Combi, Lord Grimnar, Wolf Guard on Thunderwolf, and a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf. Basic intercessors. It says assault intercessors with jump packs, a drop pod, infiltrators, long fangs, 2 bricks of Thunderwolf cavalry, a Wolfen, and then a Canis Wreck. You know, not really the most competitive list, but we already know that Michael Mann was most likely gonna be winning first round anyways, being who he is. But we said to show off the list, right? It's all good. Sometimes that happens. We have Bulgrin's last hurrah. So this guy knew that the Bulgrin were on their way out, but he was still trying to give him some love. So we have Lord Solar Leontis, platoon command squad, tank commanders who can now give themselves orders. That's what I'm talking about. Then we have Katachan, 2 big bricks of Bulgrin. So yes, these Bulgrin are going to be getting kind of pushed out of the way, maybe less of them. You might bring their counterparts, right? So we have the Ogren, but they have shotguns. They have their ability to do a little bit of combat with knives. But the fact that the tank commanders, their gun line resources got more reliable means, you know, sticking some other kind of dudes in the way, little thick boys might still pose enough of, you know, bulwark to hold the line for the guard as they just lay you out for the whole game. That's why people are finding them very, very potent right now. We got a Hellhound, Lehman Russ, Exterminator, Rogaldorn, 3 individual Scout Sentinels, and then, of course, the dreaded Tempestus Quillons. These guys are coming in with their deep strike of 3 inches, right? So they're going to come in and get right up on your face, take your backfield, maybe stop you from doing the secondary by landing an objective with you, hit you with flamers. People are not looking forward to the fact that Guard have one of these units now to go right alongside these Tempestus Scions. Orc players have to be aware of this, right? These Tempestus Quillons can actually clear our favorite little token 11-man unit of Grots, right? Having more Grots might become more of the play, having, you know, the ability to actually screen out correctly and not even allow these little 20 mil bases to get in your backfield. So that's going to be quite potent. I would say this is one of those cases where you are Michael Mann, so you're coming over this, but just know, Orc players, that Astra Militarum is going to be one of those matchups that you have to be weary of. In the spectrum, quite in a suitable way, Guard is kind of like the other side of the face of the coin of ours, right? Because they're the Imperium version of us, where they're blood and they exchange bodies for scoring and such like that. But the player themselves really can you know, reflect the skill, the potential of the army, or really bring it down. And just like us, right? And so when you're going against Michael Mann, it's like, okay, it's like one of the best Orc players on the planet versus, you know, a good Guard player. Let's say even that's still gonna offset that matchup enough. But for the rest of us mortals out here, be very wary, because it was still not a great scoring game for him in that second game. You know, going against a Guard player, so they do pose us a lot of threats. I'm not trying to hold players down, so that's why I'm not going to sit on it and make people think like, oh man, we automatically lose. You don't automatically lose. Just know that you're gonna have to play in your P's and Q's, start tagging people up, have great, you know, distribution of resources, because you see in round 3 he goes against them again. He calls it the bang bus. So people are bringing out their Guard again. They're ready to go, as just the tanks are so freaking cheap. That's why I'm just continuously going, because he had to face Guard back to back. It was funny because as this event was happening, my Discord pointed it out to me, and they're like, "This is this guy with Bully Boyz who's just messing up Guard." And I'm like, "Well, he must be unique, dude, because that's just rough." Not to mention that Bully Boyz actually do have the tools though to kill kind of Guard, right? Because they actually have anti-Lehman Russ weapons in all of these Meganobz. So that actually is kind of cool. So in this next Astra Militarum matchup, we have a Militarum Tempestus command squad, very potent with this kind of unit. They're stacking out kind of killing buffs. So these kind of, you can think of these as like deep striking missiles. You'll stick these to most likely a large unit of Tempestus Scions. We'll see if that happens, but that's what most of the time you see him doing. And he took 3 of these. We have 3 tank commanders. So of course, now you guys are all getting orders, and then you have Ursula, who's getting additional orders from what I remember. Then we have 1, 2, 3 big breaks of Tempestus Scions. As I was saying before, you stick these guys on and you stack all their killing potential between orders and their innate data sheet rerolls. 3 chimeras, which are awesome transports. 70 points, guys. 70 points for this kind of transport is pretty awesome. The fact that our battle line is better is what kind of offsets the truck with this, but dude, chimeras are such good value. 2 field ordnance batteries, Lehman and Rust exterminators, and then here we go. We see the Ogryns. Ogryns making the appearance. So the other list had the Bulgryns, now we're already seeing the Ogryns between the Rippers and I think they have combat knives, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just have ripper guns. Maybe I might be wrong. Let me know in chat. Maybe you guys know. But yeah, so be aware of guard. They're even gonna have indirect fire and such like that, but they're not an easy army to pilot. The fact that he has these Tempestus Scion bricks is quite killy, but they have a good chance of bouncing off, Meganobz on the wall. They're gonna have their field no pains to offset it. They actually have an armor of contempt they have access to in this detachment. They have their battle wagons that they can kind of stage up in. Yes, guard can kill them, but they have to have kind of cross sector of fire. They need multiple Lehman Roses to draw a line of sight onto that. And especially if the Ork player went first in this matchup, where this list doesn't have as much, let's say, something to hold the line. The other list did were big bricks of Bulgryn. You're kind of getting run over in that case, because these Ogryn aren't going to hold the line against all those Meganobz, especially when we spoke about that ingressing one. That's not necessarily always the ingressing, but the teleporter unit coming on the battlefield is always going to be quite useful. Love that, right? Love that. And maybe maybe Meganobz, maybe the Bully Boys really are going to make their appearance. I know I am sticking to the fact that it is a unique Art of War coach, and I want everybody to keep that in mind. That's why I never want people to just look at a list and say, I'm going to copy that, because you don't know who was actually piloting that, right? You don't know how many dozens of reps or maybe overall reps in 40K this person has to do it. Usually you just want to look at the kind of skeleton, the structure, the framework of the list, and see if you like that kind of archetype, and then build off that with the collection you have or what you favor. But just know, maybe a lot of us thought that Meganobz needed to still go down. It might be that our predators or their predators came down enough that it's not that simple, right? But 2 WAAAGHs can always be so freaking strong, right? So let's see. Now we go into his 4th game. Now this game was actually on War Games Live. I won't be just going through it point by point necessarily. I've thought about doing it for content. I don't know if that's even worth. But the point is, I want to talk about this without completely, I guess, saying everything that happened. So we have Azrael, a captain with honor vehement, 2 Judiciaries, Librarian Phobos, lieutenant with combi weapons, 2 of those, nice little infiltrators, super cheap, right? They can get right up the field with lone ops. And then Lionel Johnson, very cheap, fighty, punchy boy right here. We have an assault intercessor squad, another assault intercessor squad, infiltrators, 2 units of inner circle companions, triple whirlwinds for the indirect fire. So this list did have its kind of unique threats that other lists don't end up having, like the fact that he actually had whirlwinds. One thing you'll notice between a elite player and a we'll just say casual player is how much they prioritize killing our grots. Yeah, because this guy immediately understood. I'll just blow that off right now. He immediately understood, I'm going to go after grots with these whirlwinds. That's why I need Ork players to understand, when you build into these lists, just like with your offensive plans, you need a contingency for holding your home field objective if you're going to think of going out to a tournament, because some people might simply have that indirect fire, whether it's from a brigand, a soul grinder, a whirlwind, all these little odd and end units that can end up picking up just 11 grots on accident, and then you're like, oh, I guess I'm not scoring my home field. Oops, on linchpin, right? And speaking of linchpin, I believe this mission was linchpin. Let me check. No, this one was deploy locust, I believe, and they had the corners deployment on this one. But just think about that, is that you need to actually control your home objective. What if they just blow your grots away? It's like, oh, you need to have a contingency plan for that, because that was happening on this, where he was picking up grots, saying, okay, I'm going to pick up your scoring units, and you're going to have to go toe-to-toe with me elites when my elites fight first. Now, there were moments in the fight, I don't want to give it all up, where there was durability rolls that somebody withstood the fight first, or he pulled the cheeky shenanigans to get around fights first. But all in all, that's the one other thing about Bully Boyz, is that they actually have the potential to withstand these fights from these inner circles with the judiciaries, unlike other Ork detachments where they would just kind of accept the fight on death. Now, would you fight on death with Bully Boyz also? Yes, but the point is you'll fight on death and some of your units would just simply survive. Something that other detachments would just say, well, I'll fight on death and everybody else will just die. So that's another thing that might come up in the meta that you might find more alluring about Bully Boyz, is that if you're dealing with fights of first and all these other different armies, Meganobz with Bully Boyz at least give you saves. They give you the chance that you might actually survive these encounters, some of these more janky shenanigans and moments. So you can just kind of, deal with that as an Ork player and say, hey, I actually have a potential win with this. Now, is there a skill involved and a little bit of luck? For example, another funny moment that happened was this Lionel Johnson ran into a battle wagon and he hit the battle wagon and the battle wagon blew up and Lionel took a couple wounds from that, right? So there are things that happen just in games that you can kind of witness that are like, oh, okay, a little bit of luck, a little bit of shenanigans, a little bit of just straight up getting stuck in a fight. And that's what I kind of enjoyed about this matchup too, that you kind of get to go over. So I definitely recommend you go check out War Games Live so you can see this game live and how it actually went down per verbatim. But this was very much a Ork player was just closing the distance, getting stuck in, killing them, because it really came down to, well, once I actually do get involved with your 5 first units, what do you really have left, right? What do you really have left? Once I take out your inner circle, once Lionel Johnson's there, what's left? So you want to check it out. The game's really just fun to watch, but you get to kind of see how he navigates the fight phase and the order of operations he takes to overcome that elite fight on fight to going toe-to-toe matchup with Black Templars against a very good Colin K. So then we get into his 5th matchup, where is Genestealer. He says, my job is the beach. You know what that means, right? Aberrant. And for those of you who are new, Aberrants are people used to joke that they're muscle beach because they're a bunch of shirtless dudes with hammers. They're all jacked. So we have 3 abominants, which these abominants are quite punchy. I think they get back up, so be aware of that. Biophages, a Clamavis, and then a Patriarch. 2 units of these hybrids with flamers, and then another unit of neophyte hybrids. 1 Goliath truck. I'm most surprised there's only 1, to be honest. Usually I feel like people bring more, but we're gonna see 1, 2, 3 5-man units of these aberrants, and then a couple, let's see, we got 5 overall of these Ridge Runners, because there's 2-man units inside of one of these units, right? For 150 points, you're getting 2 of these big bases, kind of like our buggies. Not that our buggies do this. They used to, but they don't anymore. But this is about the size of our buggies. Then we got a hybrid Metamorph. I said Metaforce. And then a big brick of pure strain Genestealers, followed by 2 5-man unit Genestealers. People tend to do this because, one, it's kind of like a very early game pressure missile kind of unit where they're going to run into you and do dev wounds with these pure strain Genestealers. I believe they do dev wounds just like their pure strain counterparts in the actual detachments of Tyranids or faction Tyranids. But the pure strains with their version of a brood lord run up the field, run up right into you alongside these guys, they die, and then the Genestealer player starts rolling off for them. And then because they're a fast infantry unit, they can close the distance on you again when they do regen and come back to life. So you're likely to see these, and it's why you want stuff like Zod or screens, the things that get in your way. Even something like Storm Boys might end up not going into deep strike, because in this matchup you might just put them in front of other units, so I can run them in front of these guys. There's things that you can maneuver, but be aware that Genestealers are going to have a lot of units and they might just come back to life. If they don't, matchup may be in your favor. But Michael Mann, 79-point win there. And then we go into the actual game that he ended up losing. So he ended up losing to a very, very interesting Ultramarines Vanguard Spearhead. So it's funny because everybody always talks about how Space Marines kind of suck. And I happen to just have a good Space Marine player that I get to encounter for the most in play. And he's a true Space Marine player, and you get to see the tricks and things like the actual Hellblaster bomb strength and Eradicator bomb strength and Manius Calgar strength and these different named characters from Space Marines, and that's what we ended up seeing here. And if you're playing with someone who's just getting into Space Marines, doesn't have these full-fledged units and doesn't understand how to take advantage of necessarily kind of soft units, right? Because these Space Marines aren't really that durable. They are, at the end of the day, T4. That's why Orks really like going into them. You're playing with kind of like glass cannons in some ways, and it takes reps to get used to that. So we have Apothecary Biologist with the blade driven deep, Captain Sicarius, Lieutenant with combi weapons, Manius Calgar, and then Uriel Ventress. So I'll show you Manius Calgar, and then we have Ventress. Ventress gives an aura of you can get -1 -1 aura, or sorry, an aura of +1 to your stratagems, but also the Shadow War Lieutenant Veteran, I believe he also does that too. We have the Impulsor, a Devastator squad with the twin blast cannons, Company of Heroes, another unit of Company of Heroes, Eradicator, Brick, Inceptor units. We have a 3-man unit, a 6-man unit, Infiltrator squad, 2 scouts, because everybody loves the fact that scouts can be on the field, and someone if they want to shoot indirects, weapons, grats. And no, actually, Lovetron, if they want to shoot their one direct weapons at a grats, it's not an L. Some cases it can be an L, right? If you end up having, let's say you have knobs dismount from a truck, then of course they'll use that. But if they can end up picking up your home field objective unit that's just staying back there, something that you rely on as an Ork player to give you CP, to hold your home field objective so you can score it on certain missions. No, if they can just pick up your grats and you come with the contingency of something that can hold that for you as well, that can be kind of bad for you as an Ork player. Of course, if they're smart, also they'll pick up Storm Boys, right? If you have Storm Boys on the field and they're using them to score, people might end up killing those guys as well. Staging units like Flash Gets. So there are ways that people will pick smart indirect fire targets, but saying that they just pick grats as a L isn't always the case. And sometimes people will automatically go for your grats right away, knowing that they have to chew through the chaff before they can get to your valuable Ork units, and they'll just do that. So yeah, I agree to disagree, I guess. So then we have, and then like I said, so for this matchup in this list, one thing to keep in mind here is, one, this guy was playing Vanguard Spearhead, so you get a bunch of reactive moves. You get the fact that you can pick your units up. So these Centurion Devastators, not only are they great with their anti-vehicle because they have las cannons, they get to re-roll the hit rolls one. They have a bunch of reliability from the actual stratagems that when they come in from reserve with this Vanguard detachment. So these guys are like immediately popping battle wagons. They're erasing Meganobz units. And then you have, let me pull this thing up, put them in the way so we can see them all here. Make sure you guys are actually seeing what I can see. Manius Kalgar. So Manius Kalgar is a fun, durable dude that we have here that actually fights. So Manius Kalgar, he's leading a unit. He can fall back, advance, and charge. He has the ability to give you +1 CP. And then if he has these guys in his unit, they can have a feel no pain. Now, it's funny and weird in a way, right? Because usually when we're thinking of bodyguards, we're thinking of the unit that's attached to Manius Kalgar, right? So in this case, it was Eradicators. But the Victrix Honor Guard, they're considered a part of his data sheet, even though they are still bodyguards. So they actually allow him, when even one of them is still alive, to have access to a form of feeling pain, and then he can take them on himself. Usually you're like, why would you do that? He would just die and he's the character. Well, the fact that his other rule is that he, I believe, well, not only does he have a 4 of feel no pain and 6 wounds, but I think it's just a 4 of feel no pain. Yeah, he does. But the fact that he's a 4 of feel no pain and the fact that you can fall back, fight, do everything like that means people want to bring him. And then as for his weapons, he has gauntlets for twin linked, and it's strength 8, -3, 3 damage, and he has access to a power sword as well. So he's getting a boatload of attacks that he can choose to use from. Well, not boatload, but a good handful of attacks he can use to choose to use and constantly fall back and use with them alongside his Victrix Honor Card. So in the game here, Kalgar ended up becoming a big factor as well. There was a moment where there's interesting moment came up. What I would just say about that is that I'm a little bit more on Joe's side, that, you know, you can't police the whole game in every realm. And it's a moment for us all to realize that, one, not everybody plays 40K perfectly. There's a lot to remember and a lot of nuance to it. But two is that at the end of the day, when there's really big important moments, we have to do our best to try to enforce it ourselves on what's just happening, right? Like, look and pay attention to the dice roll when it's a moment if you can. Take the time to kind of pay attention to what your opponent's doing. Take the time to really pre-measure and talk about your intentions as well. And that's a part of the fatigue that comes into playing all these games. But the best part of this is that you can still look back on it and say, these are the best players in the world that are having this moment. So just know that it's still bound to happen. It's never going to be perfect. So it's not easy, but hey, that's rough, right? And yeah. So what I would say about this is, one, this guy is also one of the best players ever. The best players you can get to come into from Space Marines in Ben Neal. And he just allows you to play this in a very niche way. So you're not going to run into this often. It's not easy to pull this off, but he did pull this off against Michael Mann with a 74-point win. You can actually watch this game on the stream. Really, really cool how you can watch Michael Mann, get rid of screens and then pile into the unit that he actually wants to get into a fight in, even though he didn't declare it as a charge. So taking advantage of your pile in 3 inches after you actually getting your charge can be displayed in real time in that game, and you can go access it. So of course, again, go check out War Games Live. Go check it out. Leave a comment. Tell them Wall Tactics sent you to give love to the Great WAAAGH and Michael Mann for his performance. But again, let's go over this list one more time so we can enjoy the units that he appreciate the units that he chose to use. Excuse me. We have a Big Mek with the Driller. Way I do say use the Driller because of course we want access to that damage 3. We have Boss Nick Rat, 2 War Bosses, 3 War Bosses in Mega Armor, 1 with the Teleporter. Think of it as a QRF unit, right? It's your quick response force. If you're going second and the enemy knows that you're going to be a little bit more on the back foot than you want to be because you're not going first, they're going to be kind of acting in ways that they're going to be setting up to do damage and deliver it to you and then be screening you out or trying to pressure you on a different side of the field. That's where your Meganobz come in and say, oh, you want to run and charge it to me? Well, here's a chance I can heroically intervene you. Oh, you wanted to run and charge into me? Well, I'm going to counter charge you next turn. Things like that. So we have Boss, Snikrat, and another thing to pay attention to, right? A 20-man unit of boys continuously being used throughout, right? Having just a bunch of OC dudes that run over the field, getting involved for the wall, take over objectives, sticky them, can tag a bunch of different vehicles and gun cup gun lines. Feels really, really good once you actually know how to use mobs of boys. So check out our video on that. 1 truck, 2 battle wagons, because battle wagons are great utility, like durability utility. So I know not everybody has them, but if you have them, don't be afraid to run them. 2 small units of Gretchen. That's why I say if they kill your 1 unit of Gretchen, you only have 1, that's the one problem. But most of the time, I always advise people bring 2 minimum, right? 2 small units minimum. Then we have a commando unit. Commando unit is one of those units that you just need reps into. As much as I advise it, as much as you watch videos on it, getting reps in and just understanding each meta, each matchup, what you're going to use them for is really important for commandos. But playing the early game of infiltration and scouting is important if you choose to play competitive 40k. 3 units of Meganobz between kill saws, 1 5-man unit of knobs with power claws, and then a storm boy. So whoa for Michael Mann and his performance at the Denver 40k Fight Club. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!